just as a preamble, I was looking on Facebook the other day. I saw Jonathan Schofield was organising tours down the Oxford corridor, so I thought not to be outdone. So, and I was walking down Oxford Street the other night, which is something I very rarely do in the evening these days, usually. And it was absolutely heaving. It was about 7:30 at night, and it was so big, and there was a queue of young people from the Ritz Ballroom in Whitworth Street all the way around to almost into St. Peter's Square, queuing to go to I don't know, presumably some famous band was on, I don't know, but and the whole street was just buzzing really. And anyway, I've prepared this very serious documentary now, so I decided to start at the very top end of Oxford Street, and this is St. Peter's Square. The church, of course, is not there anymore. It was built in 1788, but it was knocked down in 1906, and there's very few buildings there, I think. To the left is now where Central Library is. Presumably the town hall's tucked away at the back. But anyway, this is what St. Peter's Square originally was. It's a fine building, actually. I mean, you can see everything's covered in black soot, isn't it? But classical design.
I think it's ugly.
Do you? Okay, fair enough. And there's all room for all opinions here. This is how the square looks now, which I think is splendid, but I think it's ugly, I don't know, but I think it looks rather, I rather like it actually.
It's one of the best in Manchester, isn't it?
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I like it. It's kind of there you see the stone cross where the church originally stood, commemorating presumably it's something to do with sacred ground. I don't know if that still applies these days, but this is a view looking up Oxford Street. I guess this must have been about, I don't know, 1900 or some early 1900s, because the church, you can see the church tower in the background there, and it was pulled down in 1906. Do you remember this? Do you remember the Gaumont?
Certainly do, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Probably the most spectacular of the cinemas in Manchester. It's certainly inside. It was absolutely stunning building inside, as I recall. And it always had this massive marquee with the films used to seem to be on forever. This must be what, mid 1960s, I suppose. Sound of Music. Okay, next door was the Oxford Cinema. There were in fact 8 cinemas between St. Peter's Square and I don't know, bottom end of Oxford Street. This was originally called, I don't know if you can see it, but it was originally called the Picture House. I think it's just marked out there on the thing. So, anyway, there you go. And now there it is.
Yeah,
the Golden Arches. The building's still there, but it's now occupied by McDonald's finest. Okay. There are so many things I missed loads of things out. I just tried to pick out a few things, so forgive me if you want to interject, and
Okay.
This is the Tootle Broadhurst building.
Yeah, fabulous building.
I think it's wonderful. Yeah, we agree, Bernard. That's fantastic. I love the tiling on it as well. It sides onto the canal actually, but I think this is Andy Burnham's lair, isn't it?
Oh, I didn't know
I
that.
think that's where the mayor's office is in. This is the fantastic entrance to it. Every time I walk past, I would stare at it. You never see it a million times, but there you go. Okay.
Could I just interject, not being a Mancunian and not having a clue where we are?
Okay.
Which way are we going up Oxford Road?
We're coming down from St. Peter's Square. This is more or less.
University.
This is more or less opposite
Towards the university.
This is more or less opposite the palace. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, this is how the palace looked at the turn of the century,
Mm.
and then it's always been it's a massive theatre. It holds, I don't know, is it 2,500 people or something? I don't think the inside's changed very much, but the exterior is now looking like that.
I think they made a right old mess of it.
What, the outside?
Yes, what a shame.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
Well, I was when I was doing this, the point of it was that some things are better and some things are worse, and some things are no longer there. But so you think this would have been better left as it was?
Personally, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it looks wonderful there.
Yeah. I suppose that there's always that kind of retrospect. People don't always like modern things, and then we go back to the old style. But there we are. That's how it looks now, anyway. But inside, it hasn't changed. The actual theatre itself.
Inside.
The backstage has changed considerably. In the early 80s, they extended the stage facilities massively, but the actual auditorium is pretty much unchanged when it was built. There we are. There's another view of it, looking up Oxford Street again. This building here, I may be mistaken, but I think this one on the left with the sort of pointed tower was the old St Mary's Hospital.
Ah.
Yeah, it was just down a bit. Yes,
used to run down into Whitworth Street.
Yes, to the Ritz.
And then it was pulled down, and then there was a car park and a while, and then now what is it now? Oh, it's Sainsbury's now, isn't it? Not on the corner there, and all new buildings. But before the, I think it was an outpatients place. I don't know exactly, but because they did build the new St Mary's down by further down. But we'll look at that in a minute. Still got tram cars. I like the idea of tram cars. I'm sure they were very comfortable, but they look nice in photographs and stuff. Yeah. Okay. This is a rather fanciful view of Oxford Road Station, as it's planning to look. It's supposed to be changing it slightly, improving it.
This is all very useful. Monday.
I think it looks like the Sydney Opera House.
That is fanciful. A mini version.
It features, Graham, in Miles Kington's book of the 50 best stations in the country.
Really? Yeah. Okay. Well, this was built in the 60s, wasn't it? This kind of archway, because before that it was a pretty dull sort of place. But we used to use it a lot because we used to come in on the Altrincham line before they built the metro. The electric train used to run from Altrincham through Sale and whatever. So I was quite familiar with Oxford Road Station. But do you remember the classic cinema?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Well, this is the approach to Oxford Road Station before they changed it, probably in the early 60s. This was like at one time it was a news theatre, like you just show newsreels and all the rest.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So was it called a Tatler or something?
A Tatler. Yeah, I thought it showed. Yeah, it showed cartoons as well.
I mean, this kind of area of town is really quite busy and lively. Now there's lots of bars and restaurants and things down there, but it was in those days it was pretty grim, actually, as I recall. Do you remember the old striped traffic lights? Yeah, they kind of look like, they don't look real, do they? They look like toys. There you go. Crossing over, there's the refuge building, Sunday. Let's see when was it built? I've got my notes here, and I'm not even looking at them.
I think the tower's wonderful.
It was built in 1891 in a kind of high Gothic, Victorian Gothic style. Of course, it's now a hotel, but I think it's grade 1 listed actually. I don't think they can do very much with the actual building itself other than and that's how one of the restaurants looks inside with all this wonderful tiling that's been retained and stuff. And the windows are front. I think it's a magnificent building actually. And then when you walk into the reception area, it's kind of, well, you know that, Jack. You remember when we went to that Christmas thing and
Oh, that was, yes, astonishing.
breath away, doesn't it, really?
It did.
And some of the corridors are a bit like toilets. The white tiles that that you used to have in all along the corridors, but quite a lot of it, the decor is the glamour of Manchester. There you are, right on the back page.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. There's the hideous old BBC building on Oxford Road. I don't know what it was like inside. Used to
Well,
work
that's
there.
where that's where I
Oh.
did the quiz game. Yeah, was filmed in there that I did with my son Phil. Today's the day.
Yeah, I think Val used to work there, didn't you? Was that where you worked, Val?
No, I went there briefly, but I worked at Granada
I was at Granada. Oh,
in
sorry.
competition.
Anyway, I think when they
So I've been inside.
I'm
the
really glad when they pulled this horrible building down. I thought it was one of the worst buildings. And this is how it looks now. It's absolutely stunning inside. If you walk in one of these tunnels not tunnels, one of the alleyways off Oxford Street, this is what you see inside. I keep walking through it. I can't believe it's there. It's surrounded by
I didn't know that was there.
multiple towers, but I think the actual design, and it's a public space. It's not, it's not private.
So what was there before then? Before they landscaped it?
Car park, isn't it?
Say again.
What was there before they landscaped it?
BBC, the whole of the BBC buildings.
It's
back.
totally moved.
So they've built around this square. They put all new buildings around the square, but they've left this
around
open.
it, yeah.
And you can access it from Oxford Street or from Charles Street.
Right.
That is.
Oh,
I think it's beautiful.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
gosh, I'm not
So
been there.
next time you
No,
down
neither
there,
have I.
have a look
Yeah.
at it. Yeah.
I must. It's a beautiful site.
You can't, the trouble is you can't actually see it from well, you can see it if you look down, but generally speaking, if you were just walking along the street, you wouldn't see it unless you knew it was there. There you go. Here's another view of Oxford Street. PC plod there watching there.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is foggy or whether it's just the quality of the photograph, the age of the photograph. It looks like winter, so it may very well have been a
Could be both.
foggy day. I don't know. This is the Regal Twins, anyway.
Oh yeah.
Which later became, I think, the ABC cinemas. But
Studio 1 and 2, weren't they?
1 and 2, that's it. Yeah, they're still there, or the building's still there anyway. But now it's the Dance House Theatre, which is it's the Northern Ballet School, in fact.
They have great pantomimes on at Christmas there.
It's a shame, really. The theatre's not used very much, is it, for general public? I mean, I've seen a couple of things there, but I mean, it's not, generally speaking, used all that much. But anyway, the actual building, it's an Art Deco thing, so it's still there. I don't know, presumably it's listed, but anyway, there you go. And this is something which always fascinates me. It's called the Hatch, which is built underneath the flyover on Oxford Street. And inside, it goes back forever. So all these restaurants and cafes and bars, incredibly popular with young people and students, obviously, because they're surrounded by, higher education places. But I think it's just a nice use of the space, actually, underneath the flyover. There's some of the modern buildings of the MMU, the Manchester Metropolitan University. That's where you worked, isn't it, Bernard?
Yep. Not in that building, but I work there. Yeah.
Yeah, but in the institution, yeah. I
think that's-
rather like. I think this is very pleasing. This glass.
Yeah, it's not bad, is it? It's good from the motorway as well.
Yeah. And then there's Johnny Roadhouse. You remember Johnny Roadhouse?
Oh yeah.
Well, it's
Yeah,
still there.
I know what that is.
Yeah.
There's no reason not to remember it because it's still there. But Johnny Roadhouse was born in 1921, died in 2009. He was born in Sheffield, but he moved to Moss Side when he was a kid and stayed in Manchester. He was a self-taught saxophonist, and he played in lots of the dance orchestras of the time. And then in 1955, he set up this music shop. Amongst his customers have been Paul McCartney, Oasis, and the Smiths. He opened it in 1955. It's still open and it's still run by his family. He died in 2009, aged 88, but it's pretty much as it was, and presumably still very used and popular within the musical. Anything to add, Bill? Is he still there? Is Bill still there?
Yes, I'm still here. Johnny Roadhouse. He set up. I knew him quite well in the early 80s, and he played in the NDO a little while, baritone sax, and but his focus of setting the shop up in the first place was to allow young children of various families who didn't have any funding to come in and use the instruments. That's how he built it up in the first place.
Okay, I like to think I buy on the principle.
No, that's his family,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. So presumably it's a sort of exchange as well as, it's not all new instruments, is it? It's kind of, anyway, there you go. Let's move on. Yeah, there's the Grosvenor Cinema, which is grade 2 listed, and therefore I can't do anything with it.
Yeah, I remember going to that. It used to have fishes and a mural on the side of it.
Yeah, that's right. That it was built in. Let me see. Lost my place. Oh yeah, it was built between 1913 and 1915, and at the time, it was the largest cinema outside London in its day. But and now I think is it called the Footage or something? There it is. It's a bar and cafe and stuff. Much used by students, but nevertheless, the exterior is pretty much as it was built in the early years.
In the basement, it used to have a snooker place, which you used to go and play snooker at lunchtime.
Yeah, there was a side entrance there. Yeah.
Riley's.
That's right. Yeah.
Riley.
Yeah. Here's well, it's called Grosvenor Square, isn't it? But it's All Saints Gardens.
All Saints Park.
All Saints.
If some of you remember that at the back of there is St. Augustine's Church, where we went on a trip with Bernard last year.
We did. It was good.
We should do more of those.
It was good. Yeah, I enjoyed that.
This is the old All Saints Church, which originally stood there. It was built in 1820. Everybody always seems to wear black, don't they? Unless it was a funeral, but I mean, anyway, it was very badly damaged in the Blitz, so it was finally pulled down in 1949.
Do you like that church, Graham?
I'm indifferent really to that one. I don't find it that imposing really. No, I don't like it. Must be that it hasn't got a Greek pillar at the front, or but I don't remember it as ever being there, but I know we used to get off the bus outside it. The 112 bus used to run from Sale along Stratford Road, and we used to get off at All Saints, and we used to walk down Cavendish. Me and my mum, I'm talking about, when I was little, and to go to the there's a street called Downing Street at the other end of Cavendish Street, where you used to collect your divvy from the co-op. But there you go.
Oh, right.
Another time, another era. But there we are. Anyway, that was how All Saints looks. And there's the painting by, which you may have seen before, probably, Adolf Vallet, who was Lowry's teacher
Yeah.
at the art school. Famous painting outside the church, All Saints. The railings are still there, actually, aren't they?
Yeah.
And this was, I don't know when this painted, at the end of the 19th century, I suppose. It's in the art gallery. This particular.
I like it. It's nice painting.
I like it too, and you can see
Mm.
where Lowry might have picked up some of his influences. So,
Yeah, it looks foggy, doesn't it? It looks foggy on it.
okay, there's the old Chorlton Town Hall, Chorlton on Medlock as opposed to Chorlton Comparty, which is on the side of the square, built in 1830. And then shortly afterwards, Chorlton on Medlock didn't need a town hall because it was sucked up by the city of Manchester. So it became a police headquarters for a long time. And the most famous thing I could find about it was that it was the home of the 5th Pan-African Congress held there in October 1945. And people who were there were, these names you may remember: Hastings Banda, who was the president.
Kenyatta.
Kwame Nkrumah, Owolofu from Nigeria, and Kenyatta from Kenya. But sadly, the building, all that remains now is the facade, which is part of the Naval Timecoat building, which is part of MMU. But they've kept the facade, which is nice. Yeah, this building next door to it used to be the old School of Art, I think, to the right of it as you look at it. Presumably it's still part of the MMU, but anyway. And there we have the RNCM, Royal Northern College of Music, formed in 1973 as an amalgamation of the Royal Manchester College of Music and the Northern School of Music. The Royal Manchester goes back to 1858. I was reading that it has one of the most, what's the word? Mixed types of music are performed there, you know.
Eclectic.
Yeah, that's possibly the word, but it was kind of like all kinds of music is more than any other venue in the UK, apparently. But whether that's just trumpet blowing, I don't know. But yeah,
It's a great asset.
It has a fantastic concert hall, which I really like, because it's not too big and you can see what's going on the stage, I suppose. And then it has I haven't been for a while, but they used to put terrific opera productions on at one time, and in a very nice theatre. But both venues are used not just by the college, but by, you know, the music world in general. And it's got a pretty good name, actually. There's an old romantic picture of Oxford Road looking up from Whitworth Hall at the university. Trams seem to figure quite heavily in today's thing, don't they? But building's pretty much unchanged, actually, that part of it anyway. The university stems from the Royal School of Medicine and Surgery from 1824, Owens College 1851, the Victoria University, which was the old name for the university, in 1880, and then UMIS came along in 56, and then the whole thing was pushed together to form the University of Manchester in 2004. It has around 46,000 students, and it's one of the largest campuses in Europe. And it has approximately 2/3 of those 46,000 are undergraduates and 1/3 are postgraduate. Further along, the museum, which has just reopened, which I think was visited yesterday by Lorraine, is that right?
Yes, we went to the museum yesterday.
Was it good? Did you enjoy it?
Really enjoyed it. Yeah. We saw the mummies,
Okay.
you know, the golden Egyptian exhibition.
Yeah, it's one
It
of my.
was good.
Good.
One thing, sorry.
Go
go
on.
No,
Carry-
I remember going seeing the mummies many years ago.
Uh-huh.
And but what was different about this is that they were all covered up in their in their, like, you know, fancy coffins, what, for want of a better word,
Sarcophagus.
in their
Sarcophagi.
sarcophagi.
I think is the word,
And
yeah.
and I wondered, really, there was a lot of stuff about, you know, the tombs being pillaged, and, you know,
Yeah.
especially by the English, the British, and I wondered whether that was a sort of mark of respect, really, that they decided not to display the mummies,
Yeah,
their bodies,
maybe.
but to cover them with yeah, that was, yeah, and that made me think that. But the East Asia display was really good. I really enjoyed that. Yeah.
Well,
go on then.
We can talk about this another time, I think, but it sounds very interesting. That's one of the newer buildings at the university on the opposite side. There's the old dinosaur in the museum itself. Then we're moving down to the Royal Infirmary, which has been there since, I think, 1906 or something like that, which was when the infirmary moved from Piccadilly Gardens down to Oxford Road, and then there was the eye hospital in St Mary's as part of it. And of course, those buildings are still there, but at the back of it, they've built all new hospitals now, which look like this. Some of which, I think I love the eye hospital. I think that's a fantastic space. But Manchester Royal is, as ever, as complicated as it ever was finding your way around.
Yeah.
You just have to hope you survive till you get to the surgery or whatever it is where you go.
I used to get lost when I worked there. Found me way around there.
Here's the Whitworth,
yeah.
built in, it's founded in 1889, finally completed in 1990. It belongs to Manchester University now, but it's a great space, I think, and I love the Whitworth, and I love the
And
fact
the extension at the back looks great as well.
especially now that you're sort of, the park comes into the building, doesn't it? Nice. Okay.
I dashed in there to use the loo, actually, yesterday.
There's the fine figure of King Edward VII, with his patina of birdlime, who's been there since he opened the hospitals. That's why his statue's there, I think. I don't think it was, I don't know why it's in that pose, but there you go. The old goat, as they called it. There we are. Curry Mile. This is pretty much the end of Oxford. This is where, well, it's not Oxford Street, it's Oxford Road after the station, but this is where it ends and turns into Wilmslow Road. But there are, you know, it's either activity and industry there. I found these lovely drawings by a guy called Len Grant, who's done a kind of series of little drawings about. It's a very kind of sanitized version of what it's like, really, because actually it really looks like that. But
Yeah.
There's bike lanes all the way down now, which was
but
really
to me,
quite a long way.
in the daytime it looks vile, but at night time it comes to life. You know, it's sort of it's a very lively place, really. And there's a rather pretty picture of trams running down Oxford Road, and that's, I think, I've managed to get to the end, so there we are. So that's it, folks.
That's brilliant, that, Graham. Really good.
Great.
Yeah. See
Thanks,
some.
Graham. That was really good.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, I'm afraid I won't be able to join you tomorrow.